Welcome into another edition of Ringside Review. I am Athan Hristodulu, and as always, joined alongside by Matt Colpitts. We're diving into another post-Raw recap, taking a look at everything that has transpired in the last day. I would say that this past Monday Night Raw was a little bit of a slower one, a little less eventful than the last few weeks per se, but overall some good progression with things, matches either being made official or we are clearly going to be getting matches that will be made official within the next week or so. So plenty of things for us to discuss. Matt, thank you as always for joining. We're going to start with just like quick thoughts, some notes, some takeaways. And the first thing I've got to bring up here, Sheamus and Rusev, another match. This time Sheamus coming away with the win. This feels like one of the most, like, what are we doing with this? And it's only happening on Monday Night Raws. On top of that, like, it has not been featured in any paper or PLE, over the last like month or so, however long this little rivalry's been going now between the two of them. It just kind of feels like it's one of those things that is just happening, and I don't really know why.
Yeah, and unfortunately, as an early prelude to probably most of what I'm going to say today, I feel like if you go back on the past few Ringside reviews, I'm turning into Mr. Negative, and I hate that. I don't want to be such a hater for WWE because I'm a fan, clearly. But I just feel like this Rusev and Sheamus feud is a great example of just why, like you said, like, why are we getting this? I don't understand why Rusev is going to take an L if you're trying to build him up and, like, you just brought him back. Like, he's just kind of floating around as a mid-carder right now. Same thing that Sheamus has been doing. So I didn't really understand it. When I saw it pop up, the match graphic, I was like, we're getting this again. Here we go. So, unfortunately, that's how I feel about a lot of stuff in WWE right now, especially this feud.
Yeah, I guess it's something that maybe we see, like, the rubber match between the two ends up being one, because SummerSlam is 2 days this year, so maybe that's one of those things where it takes a spot on that card there. We are just under 2 weeks away from that now, so that could probably be the route that they go. It feels like, to your point, like, if we're building up Rusev here, having him just take a loss like that on Raw clean, I don't really, it just doesn't make sense to me. Another thing that popped up during the night, though, that I think is worth mentioning here, because I do think it adds a layer to what's potentially going to happen in the match at SummerSlam itself. Lyra and Becky facing off. Their title match, round number 3, is going to be no disqualification. I do think that opens the door. A lot of people have been wondering, obviously, what happens with Bayley now, because she's no longer in the picture, and she kind of ended up being like a third person in the whole IC title picture that we had going on for the last month now. I feel like there's a way for her to get back in and get back involved. I almost feel like either she's not done, and of course, obviously still being inserted in this anyways, like not being in the match, but still being involved in the feud regardless. I feel like Bayley's not done with this IC championship picture, whether it's with Bayley or against Becky Lynch, or whether it's something underlying issue that's still unresolved with Lyra Valkyria. Again, it's interesting to see they decided to go no DQ, because that means anything can really happen. Bayley could maybe pick a side with one of the two at the event and help the other win. And like, what would be more shocking than maybe like a double heel turn kind of thing from Bayley, where maybe she turns on Lyra and sides with Becky and it ends up being Becky and Bayley. Like, that would be kind of an out of left field turn.
Yeah, what you just said was going to be exactly what I was going to say. Is like, it would be cool to see the 4 horsewomen kind of come together. Like, that's where Bayley and Becky have that tie. So it would be, I feel like that's something that Bayley needs, is like that oomph to her character, because it's really flat. She came back, she did get the pop, but then it's just fizzled very quickly because WWE's been booking her with the losses. My gripe with this is I like where it's going. I do feel like Lyra is established now, finally, and Becky is doing a great job. She's been really buying into like the Becky Hogan kind of caliber. She's been running out with the red jackets, yellow wristbands, really playing up the Becky Hogan slogan. But I just feel like, again, Bayley's just kind of been floating around. And I didn't understand why her and Lyra were teaming this past Monday Night Raw after they've been feuding so much. So, again, Bayley just kind of floating. Some aspects of this feud raise some questions. But overall, I think it's going to be a great match. And I do see the fact that the stipulation has been added, that Bayley will definitely play a key role.
Yeah, the teaming of them two together on Monday Night Raw is kind of what made me spin into the idea of, like, maybe we do get like this double heel turn thing from Bayley, where, you know, she comes in maybe acting like she's going to help Lyra out, because obviously her and Becky kind of have a bit of a history themselves, but ultimately maybe it's like a double turn and we see 2 of the 4 horsewomen get back together and reunite as like a heel run, because if there is something to be said, the women's tag team division, I think, does need another serious threat to the current holders. And what better way than maybe to pin Bayley and Becky Lynch together at some point down the line after Becky ultimately loses the title, and you could have those two going to run together. Like, that is ultimately a very viable tag team in my eyes for the women's division. Now, getting into some of the bigger things that happened, the show begun with CM Punk obviously coming out and saying some words to the crowd, followed by Gunther coming out to interrupt him as well. And I want to highlight something that came away from just the confrontation between Gunther and CM Punk. Now, Gunther is back on the dominant heel. I'm going to crush you. I'm going to maul you and treat you like a wet rag. And literally his words to CM Punk before walking away, and even making fun of him for being so happy with the fact that the fans are always cheering for him. But there was something that you had mentioned to me prior to us going on that I noticed, and that is the crowd bringing up the "you tapped out" chants, and the conflicting feeling that sits in me right now with Gunther, where him tapping out at WrestleMania, I was trying to be okay with, and I was trying to be okay with the loss to Jey Uso. But now in hindsight, seeing how short Jey Uso's championship run was as world champion, and just how flat his championship reign ended up being as a whole, I see where Gunther is, and I like where he is currently at. This is the version of Gunther I enjoy. I'm going to go in and absolutely whoop you. Gunther is my favorite version of Gunther. Not the whatever they kind of did to him in the lead up where he was like doubting himself against Jey Uso going into WrestleMania and then ultimately losing. Like that, I was not a fan of that at all. Now we're back in a situation. Gunther's doing his thing. But now you have ammo for the crowd to chant things like "you tapped out" at WrestleMania. It hurts me because I'm excited to see how this match plays itself out. I think there's a few different ways we can go with so many uncertainties up in the air right now. And the fact that this is being hung over Gunther just kills me on the inside.
Yeah, it feels very much like the damage has been done, you know? And I just look at the whole World Heavyweight title picture with a lot of question marks, which I feel like I've been saying, again, I didn't want to be Mr. Negative, but here I am. Just with this, it's like you give the title to Jey. It was a feel-good moment. He wins the Rumble, only for him to drop the title to Gunther so quickly, which kind of felt like you were just giving him the title so you could kind of build up the whole Goldberg retirement match. But then that kind of fell flat. You had the Seth Rollins injury. Nobody knows how that ever was truly supposed to end. And now you have Gunther going into this match with CM Punk, who's like the #1 guy that you would kind of pick to be like, oh yeah, like it makes the most sense for him to be the next champion. So it feels very much like this is a TKO-induced transitionary reign for Gunther. I do love that he's coming back as the dominant ring general, but to your point, the damage has been done where he's tapped out to Jey Uso. No matter what you do with Jey, you push him back into being a tag team with his brother. You push him back into the bloodline scene, which is where he's going right now with Roman Reigns. We'll touch upon that later. It doesn't change the fact that this result happened at WrestleMania 41. People are going to remember it. We're now into July, and people are still loudly chanting "you tapped out" every single time Gunther comes. So, yeah, I just don't know. I feel like, personally, I just need him to, like, hand the title off to Punk, go on a whole new, like, extravaganza, adventure, whatever it is, which I liked what he was doing after he lost the title to Jey and, like, fighting with McAfee, going on a rage. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of questions with how the title's being kind of booked, with how Gunther's being booked. But I do like what we saw out of the promo yesterday. That is my biggest positive takeaway.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really hurts me right now about this whole reign with Gunther, and you had made a really good point. Like, CM Punk is the #1 candidate to take that belt off of Gunther, and I feel like the loss at WrestleMania and just that middling reign from Jey, and then being just hot potatoed back to Gunther, which, to your point, kind of felt like a TKO thing where they were like, this isn't working, like Gunther's the better heel champion, or whether that's them, or if it's just Triple H maybe realizing, this is not working, we need to go back to having a dominant heel champion for a new babyface to take over. It like takes the wind out of the sails of the effect of, if CM Punk goes over at SummerSlam, it's not as impactful. if CM Punk had gone over winning the World Championship at WrestleMania, or if Gunther had just won at WrestleMania and still had this long championship reign going where, he's been taking down all comers. He's coming off, even if it wasn't the most brilliant match in the world, a win over a legend like Goldberg. I just wish that loss of the title and the muddying of what could have been an even bigger win for somebody like CM Punk at SummerSlam, I just wish that loss didn't happen. And I think it kind of ruins it for me. But overall, I'm excited for it. If this is where it feels like all bets are off right now. It feels like this is the moment CM Punk can finally win a world championship, because Drew McIntyre is, I believe, on SmackDown right now. Yep. I feel like he pops back and forth between shows so often that I forget where he actually resides. But he's busy on SmackDown, and then on top of that, Seth Rollins is supposed to be hurt. And is Seth Rollins going to be sending Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed out to do his dirty work over beef with CM Punk that they technically don't really have any issue with? And unless it's Paul Heyman pulling that string, then I guess that's a possibility. But it feels like this is the moment for CM Punk to finally get that world championship for the first time since coming back to WWE. And I just wish that it wasn't in such a weird circumstance where, back to your point of, this feels like a transitional championship run for Gunther. I don't like all of that surrounding this moment. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited to see CM Punk possibly win at SummerSlam. It just could have been built to this moment a little bit better. Next thing, though, we got to get into here, the women's world title picture. Now, this is going to be, I have the wrong thing up on the screen here. We have ourselves the Women's World Championship match. We're looking at Io Sky and Stephanie Vaquer, who fought last night. Now, this match, in my eyes, the way this came up, it looks like what would you call it? It's a way to keep Stephanie Vaquer relevant because she has a championship match coming up following SummerSlam. It's a weird situation where the challenger of a championship for a title that needs to still be defended. It's just an odd situation. So they have themselves a really good match for the night. Rhea and Naomi obviously run into this one here, and it continues to just evolve into this thing. We're going to have this triple threat at SummerSlam, but don't forget that Stephanie Vaquer is there. I want to ask you this. Is there a possibility in any shape or form, this is more just a question from me to you, Matt, is there a possibility that we potentially see Vaquer have any sort of involvement with the finish of the match at SummerSlam? In any realm, shape, or form, whether it's by accident, it's intentional, whatever it may be, to set, because you have 3 very viable options for her to face at Clash in Paris, and I don't necessarily know why they're already involving her with the way they kind of are to this point. So it leads me to believe that maybe triple threat match, championship on the line, no disqualification, obviously, because of the match type, Stephanie may have a piece of, or a part in the final decision of that outcome.
For sure. It is a complete possibility. Personally, I think it's going to be more, I do not see Naomi losing so soon, so I do think that she's going to have a bit of a reign, however long it goes. Maybe it only does go until Clash at Paris, and then Vaquer is going to win ultimately. But I don't see Naomi losing. So with that being said, I don't see Vaquer necessarily interfering, because I feel like the only way she's interfering is to cost Naomi the belt. Mm-hmm. So what I personally would see is more like, she's going to be sitting ringside, or even maybe by the announcer's table, to kind of allude hey, whoever wins this match, you got me next. And they're going to show her before the match. They're going to promote Clash in Paris, because that's what WWE loves to do, is always promote the next show. But I don't think she's going to get involved just personally. But like you said, triple threat, it's on the table for the possibility. If anyone is getting involved in this match with an interference, it's going to be Stephanie Vaquer.
Yeah, definitely. And I there's now with Stephanie Vaquer as the person that's challenging for the championship too, I just the more I think on it, each and every single one of the 3, whether it's Naomi, whether it's Rhea Ripley, whether it's Io Sky, these are all very viable, great opponents for her to face off one-on-one against once they head into Paris for the event. But I'm curious as to how, there's a piece of me that feels like she's going to be involved in some way. And it won't even be not like a nefarious involvement. It's more so like you said, sitting at ringside, she's there. whether it's Naomi barking at her as like the heel champion type of thing, or maybe it's like a Rhea Ripley won't back down from anybody. Maybe there's a spot outside the ring where Rhea Ripley, comes face to face with her, but gets caught off guard from Io or something like that, where that maybe like turns the tide for somebody else's favor. Like that's kind of where my head is at. But I just think it's interesting that so early with this match still needing to get out of the way, they already kind of got Stephanie Vaquer in the mix. I like it because it's good like long-term storytelling, I guess, where it gets her involved, where you're in like this weird holding pattern of this match needs to happen before we have this one. But it's just one of those things that kind of popped up in my mind as I was watching that play out last night. Last thing we got to get into though, the main event. We had, of course, Paul Heyman, Bronson Reed, Bron Breakker out to let everybody know that they run the place, essentially. Now, the big moment, of course, being Roman Reigns coming out to go face-to-face with all of them. We had the back and forth between Roman and Bronson and Braun. Braun eventually hitting that spear on Roman, and Jey coming out to make the save here now. It feels like we are getting ready for an eventual tag team match at SummerSlam. First question I have for you, because I got a couple of them, but I want to hit you with this one first here, because I was very interested after Roman Reigns came back last week as to where he was going to go with his first match back. It's been a while since we've seen him going back to, I believe, the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania. Is this match a letdown for you in terms of just what Roman Reigns could be doing going into SummerSlam? Like, yes, his return is very short from being 3 weeks technically out until SummerSlam. It's a really quick turnaround to get him involved in anything really big, but I was just kind of hoping for something a little bit more than just a run it back bloodline match between Roman and a cousin of his against just two guys that happen to work for or are in a group with Seth Rollins.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I really feel like the Rollins injury is legit, or at least a little bit more severe than anticipated, because this does feel like one of those well, we couldn't have Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins at SummerSlam. Let's do this instead. Mm-hmm. I like that it's going to showcase Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed, because I'm sure otherwise they would have just been background characters at SummerSlam, valets for Seth Rollins' match. But yes, it is definitely a letdown when you have Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, one of the top guys, if not the top guy in WWE, with merch sales and just aura in general, in a tag match. I would like to see it maybe be like a tornado tag or have some kind of stipulation where it could be a little bit more fun.
A Bloodline rules tag match.
Bloodline rules, why not? Add something to it to maybe spice it up, especially where you have Jey Uso, the former world champ. You don't really want to relegate him back to just being the right-hand man. You'd like to keep his star power and his merch going. So I think this definitely could use a little spice to it. I don't believe it's official yet, at least at the time of this podcast recording. I don't
believe so.
So there is still potential that maybe what I just said is the truth and what's going to happen. But if it's a standard 2-on-2 tag, you get a tag in and out, I would say it's definitely a little flat.
Yeah. I to your point, this is where... And this is kind of goes back to, I feel, what I said last week about just I personally felt like Roman Reigns' return was like a break the glass, hit the emergency button. We need something because Seth Rollins is out. And I feel like Roman's return was maybe supposed to be at or around SummerSlam in some shape. Obviously around SummerSlam could technically be last week, but I think it was either SummerSlam or maybe the night after where Roman gets back into the fold. And this was we're in a spot where Seth isn't here to have this match that he was supposed to have. We need to throw Roman into it. And maybe that's what we're getting right now. But I don't know. For me, Roman Reigns, I feel maybe it's because I got so accustomed to him having a championship, having these championship matches. He was a big, just a normal run-of-the-mill tag match against two guys that Roman has beef with Paul Heyman, sure, but it feels empty not having Seth Rollins there. This feels like we were supposed to get Roman versus Seth, and that is something that I was hammering in the lead up to WrestleMania wanting to see. And then I was like, okay, well, if SummerSlam's a 2-night double event kind of thing like they're doing with WrestleMania, I guess I could settle on it for SummerSlam, and that's kind of what I felt they were doing. Now here we are in this tag team match that feels like it's just being slammed together for the sake of being slammed together and filling that match slot. I don't know. I'm a little disappointed. I'm excited to see Roman back. I just really wanted to see that Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns one-on-one.
For sure. And, it's still on the horizon. I think the ultimate build is to get to Rollins and Reigns, whenever it may be. Again, we just don't know what the Rollins situation is. Is it a work? Is he leaving SummerSlam as a champion? Is he not coming back until next year? Is he not coming back until the next WrestleMania? We have no idea. So I do think the ultimate payoff is going to be Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins one more time, which we haven't seen in forever. But, yeah, I mean, until then, we get a tag match at SummerSlam, and I guess we're going to look forward to it because we have no other choice.
So something that just popped into my head, and I'll leave you with this as we go. Seth Rollins, injury's real. We don't see him until, let's say, January. Roman, between now and then, recaptures a championship. Maybe it's against Cena, maybe somebody else down the road. Rollins returns, cashes in, takes the title from Roman, and that's how we get the matchup main event at Mania next year.
I love it. I love it.
Oh, so we'll have to see. All right, we'll see. I'll settle for the Roman tag match with Jey, but I was really looking forward to maybe getting a Seth versus Roman. But that'll do it for us here at Ringside Review. As always, if you made it to the very end, greatly appreciate it. We'll see you all next Tuesday following another edition of Monday Night Raw.